The much anticipated Persona 5 is going to release in about a month. Well, hopefully. I've spent hundreds of hours on the previous 2 entries, and they are some of my favorite games of all time. I knew I wanted to make a video about them, but what to talk about exactly? While researching, I realized something. Persona 3, the game that reinvented the franchise and established its modern popularity, was released nearly 10 years ago. The latest game in the series, Persona 4, was published in North America over 8 years ago. Even its second iteration, Golden, was over 4 years ago, and on a failing console. So there hasn't been a good entry point in a while. Certainly not any of the spin-off games, as they presume you've beaten both 3 and 4, neither of which are available on PS4 or Xbox One. So for onlookers, it might be hard to nail down the appeal, only knowing surface aspects like it's turn-based, or it's a dating sim, or it's like demonic Pokemon, or waifu wars. I personally appreciate the mystery component of its storytelling. I only had to play Persona 3's opening hour to be thoroughly hooked. Let's take a look how it handles its premise. Our edgelord protagonist is making his way through the city to his new living quarters, spliced with scenes of a girl attempting and failing to commit suicide. Our emo hero steps off the train at about midnight when all electrically powered devices turn off, the skies turn green, and coffins and blood litter the streets. I've never visited Japan before, but judging by the slightly puzzled look on the protagonist's face, I assume this isn't a common occurrence. He finally reaches the dormitory, encountering a little boy.
No one can escape time. It delivers us all to the same end. You can't plug your ears and cover your eyes.
And tells him to sign the contract. Like every person who's signed a TOS agreement, he doesn't bother to read the fine print. The girl from earlier appears again, seeming just a tad bit jumpy.
Takeba, wait!
We are introduced to Yukari and Mitsuru. It's undeniable that your dorm mates are assuredly hiding something from you. Picking up the pace, you start your first day of school and meet your homeroom teacher, and she brings up something interesting.
Let's see. In 1999, that was what, 10 years ago? Your parents...
Coincidentally, the protagonist and Yukari are in the same class. Yukari really pushing to keep last night's events hush-hush. You walk home with Junpei, and I really like these scenes early on. You get a good view of the locations you'll traverse later and the people you'll meet. It gives you the idea that these people are living their own lives even when you and the protagonist are not there to witness it. And this is true with the main cast as well. The weird vibes you get from your dorm mates continues as they are really eager for you to go to sleep. We see an unmentioned resident of the dorm converse with Mitsuru.
Didn't you see the newspaper? There's a lot going on.
I know. People who had no problems before are suddenly developing acute cases of apathy syndrome. I've seen it in the news quite often lately. They say it's due to stress, but...
Yeah, right. It has to be them. Otherwise, it's not worth my time.
You have a one-track mind. Will you be okay on your own? The chairman will be here for the next few days, but after that, I can...
Don't worry, I'm just getting a little practice.
This implies that whatever he's been doing for a while. The next day we meet Akutsuki, a chairman of your school, an exposition machine. And just like the rest, he's oddly suspicious. Which leads us to our first payoff. Everyone's odd behavior can be contributed to the fact that they've been monitoring you, probably since the first night you slept there. Akutsuki explains the midnight anomaly.
The dark hour occurs every day at 12 midnight. You could say it's the hidden hour. During this time, an ordinary person transmogrifies into a coffin and is oblivious to all that occurs.
Then he must be...
As you can see, he's retained his human form. He's asleep, but he's definitely experiencing the dark hour.
Protagonist sure is handling the nature of this phenomenon better than this guy. The Velvet Room, a staple in all Persona games, is introduced and is tied to that contract you didn't bother to read. Igor and his assistant have appeared before you to lend a help in fulfilling your responsibilities. Ikutsuki and the rest continue their observations the next night. The dialogue here reveals that Yukari is relatively new to all this. Ikutsuki's justification for their actions shows that their circumstances must be dire. The creep.
Ikutsuki.
There's a sudden attack on the dorm, and according to Akihiko, they are far more dangerous than the other ones, whatever that means. Yukari collects you, and the two of you make your way to the roof. A sinister figure scales up the side of the building. When Yukari pulls the trigger, it's clear there's some sort of reaction with these blue spirals. She is unable to complete whatever ritual she was attempting. The protagonist gets the idea he should use the gun, with the small boy goading him on. From this, we can assume the boy, and by extension the contract and the Velvet Room, all tie into this in some way. The protagonist summons his persona, but not just that, morphing into another creature. Judging by everyone's reaction, this is not commonplace. Undoubtedly, this enforces the notion that even among other Persona users, the protagonist is extraordinary. The protagonist wakes up at the hospital to find Yukari waiting by his side. This is the first time we truly get to see her unguarded, and reveals her past, feeling guilty for prying into yours.
It was back in '99. There was a big explosion in the area. Supposedly, my dad died in the blast, but nobody really knows what happened.
There's that year again. We are formally introduced to the group and their objective of eliminating shadows and rid of the apathy syndrome. So to summarize, we know the guns Yukari, Mitsuru, and Akihiko own are not in fact guns, and are called evokers, used to summon personas. The electricity going out in the green sky is caused by the dark hour, which takes effect at 12 a.m. During this time, human bodies transform into coffins or will be vulnerable to attack by shadows and suffer the apathy syndrome. The protagonist is unknowingly recruited by Seize to monitor his abilities and hopefully awaken them. I know it might seem I've said too much, but this is everything you learn just 1 hour into this 80-hour plus game. There are still questions that remained. Who was the boy? What significant event took place in 1999? What is the origin of the Dark Hour and the Shadows? Why is the protagonist different from other Persona users? These questions will be answered, but the mysteries will continue. I didn't even mention Tartarus or Strega. Persona 3, in my opinion, does a great job of setting up an engaging plot with its mystery-style storytelling, and it seems intentional considering the next entry was a murder mystery. From the looks of the trailers for Persona 5, it seems to follow suit. Now this isn't the only element of these games I enjoy. There's the characters, the music, the gameplay mechanics, but it was what started my obsession with the Persona series nearly 10 years ago. Thanks for listening, and if you've enjoyed this video, check out some of our others.